I'd like to call the meeting to order. We could do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll do the roll call.
Commissioner Cathalder?
Here.
Commissioner Carney? Here. Commissioner Zanstra is absent. Commissioner Gerard?
Here.
Commissioner Salzweedl?
Here.
Commissioner Hall?
Here.
And Chair Hanley.
Here. Would anyone like to move to?
Move to excuse absence.
I'll second it.
Thank you. For James. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Thank you. And then looking at the agenda.
I'll move to approve it.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Abstains? And the agenda is approved. And then moving on to the minutes for the January 12th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I didn't
I'll
see.
second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? And that passes as well. And then I would like to open up the meeting for any public comments, communications concerning items not on the agenda. Seeing none, we will close that and move on to old business. And the review of the summary dimensional regulations, which is in your packet.
And that's something we've talked about before, and I think it was just, it's an item, and maybe we'll just keep it on your agenda. If you have any comments or observations, pass those along to us. This is more of a long-term project. You have quite a few reviews on your meeting agenda
Right.
tonight, so
Yes.
if anybody has any questions or any comments for us, we can come to those.
I was just going to ask Andy, nothing of this has changed, right? These are what we looked at before.
Correct.
Okay.
We're just looking for any observations or
Okay. Any discussion around the dimensions? No? Okay. And then moving on to new business. The first thing is the site plan review of 835 West Main. Is there somebody here to speak about that? Okay. Yeah? Can you state your name, please, and your address?
Yes, I'm Peter Rickards. I live at 5105 Burn Avenue, that's Lowell.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to tell us about this property?
Sure. I purchased this building in December with the idea of opening a small retail store, market slash deli. We plan to focus on nutrition and natural foods. They're focusing mainly on supplements, sports nutrition, herbs and bulk teas, some vegan products, general health products, and homeopathic remedies. Additionally, we'll serve whole fruit smoothies, and some sandwiches and wraps. As space is at a real premium in the building, it's quite a small building, 800 square feet. In-store consumption will be limited to 2 tables, 8 chairs. Don't expect to do a lot of in-store service, but we'll be happy to do what we can.
Were there questions on the review that provided by Williams?
I don't know if you want to hear from Andy at all. I mean, he did prepare the report for you. We actually had a chance to sit down and do some preliminary work with Mr. that part of the process, I think, is working. We're going to talk about some administrative review issues
Right.
later on. But I think we were able to flush through a lot of things and you know, provide some information and sort of work through the process. And it sounded like that, at least worked out pretty well. Andy's recommendations they're up on the screen and they're also in his report.
Yeah, I don't have any significant concerns or major zoning issues associated with this property. The building's existing, the parking's existing. It's really just a new use going into you know, vacant building right now. The sign is existing, the frame is there, looks like all the outside lettering has been taken off, so the sign will be repaired and it meets the standards of the zoning ordinance anyways. The only thing in my report that I called out where it's really the only one item to deal with is landscaping. And since this is two parcels that are side by side, and since each of those parcels individually is too small to meet the standards of the C3 zoning district, we have to consider it basically one big lot, which means there's a little more landscaping than would be required if it was just one single property on its own. So that's where we have the requirement for 4 trees and 12 additional shrubs on the site that can be installed, obviously as soon as the weather permits to do so. Otherwise, everything else is pretty, it seems fine to me. It seems like it'd be great new business for the city, and parking's fine as it is. Some of the other issues about accessing the building, ADA and things like that would be handled through the building code, and so those aren't really zoning issues. So other than that, I don't have any significant concerns, and the only real conditions I have that are different from the conditions that we normally put up there is the one about the sign, which is kind of taken care of already. There was at one point a sign there that referred to a business that was down the street. Has since been taken down, so that number 4 just clarifies that the sign like that can't go back up there. And then the other one, number 3, just deals with adding the trees to get it up to the zoning requirements.
So are you saying that existing sign would come down?
It already has. Well, the sign, there was
There's one
a,
that's got like the 6 things into it on the corner there. and They're all gone.
yeah,
So
so,
he could reuse that one.
the actual structure, like the actual structural frame of the sign
Yeah.
is fine the way it is. Well, I mean, once it gets repaired and put back, the size of it is fine and all of that. The only issue that we had with the sign before, I'm not sure if it was the same, if it was on the same sign, if it was on a different sign, the one that said, I forget the name of the business, but it referred to something that was down the street, which is against the ordinance, so.
That was the same sign.
Yeah,
that was
one
the-
sign.
Yeah, so that's gone,
Right.
and so that's a non-issue at this point.
We're happy?
Yeah.
Motion to approve it with review.
Okay. Second, who was that?
John?
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Great,
Good luck.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
And then moving on to the site plan review for 210 East Main Street.
I'm Greg Canfield, I live at 403 North Washington. Site plan review.
Excellent. Anything you want to tell us about it?
No, we are renovating a building across the street that is probably one of the most forlorn and ugly buildings in town. Looking forward to having that turned into a nice historic looking building. There's certainly a demand locally for another good restaurant in town, and we have a local couple, Aaron Van Epps and Joe Ziegler, are going to run a barbecue restaurant there. And initially, we thought it was kind of a similar use and wouldn't need a site plan review, but a private lodge and a restaurant are a little bit different, so that's why we're here. No exterior changes, nothing really that.
Not gonna put any windows out front?
Pardon me?
No windows out front?
The windows will be out front, yes. That's part of the building plan review.
Question? Andy, did you have anything on this one for us that you wanted to talk about? We read your,
Yeah, I mean, not really, that's, since this is in the C2 district, there's no minimum lot requirements, there's no setback requirements. So they can build right up to the lot line, or the existing building can be right up to the lot line, which it is. And then the other thing is that we spent some time talking about parking downtown with mixed use and in C2. And since there's not really room on the parcel to have parking, the ordinance does allow one to count public spaces within 250 feet. And we did that analysis, and there's well over 100, which is more than they need. So parking is not a concern. So with this one, I don't think I had any conditions on my approval. I think on my recommendation that is it can be approved as presented, since there's no changes to the building itself. There's not really anything for us to address at this point.
excellent.
Motion to approve it then?
I just had one question. I know we're looking at a potential parking lot of 50 spaces. That's not part of this particular.
That's gonna be behind there.
Right, exactly, in the city. And I just making sure that there was some form of a path from there up to those restaurants without crossing that alley right there as I was back here.
Oh, with the new parking lot that they're putting in?
Yeah, I didn't know what the city's plans were for some form of a walk.
There currently is no walk to any of the buildings that are there. We believe that there's maybe 7 feet or so that is owned by, I think I have it right now, about 7 feet is owned behind the building. And then there's an alley. But we're getting mixed signals in our title searches about whether or not that's actually even an alley. Yeah, and so we're working on that process. But I think the future plans would be that the property owners would own 20 feet behind the buildings, and then there would be like a walkway and then a future parking lot. So there would be like some kind of buffer zone between the parking lot and then the ownership, the 20-foot ownership.
They're all gonna have access, right?
Yes, and then they would all have access to that area.
Sounds good.
But right now, there's nothing. I mean, people come out. There is a little bit of a buffer to the ownership and things that are back there, but there isn't anything. Leading up the
Something like
Okay, well, we talked over you, we have a motion and a second, so,
that. Okay.
okay. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? All right, excellent. All good news tonight. And then moving on to the administrative review process, and I think that's what you were alluding to, right, Mark?
It was, and the 2 applications that you had tonight actually are examples of those cases. And Andy's written a great summary for you and given you some detail on this, but they're great examples of where folks will come in, they purchase the building, want to convert it to a use that maybe is different than the previous use. And it's a use that's allowed within the district, so it's not a special use. And on a special use, we might, I'm sure we could walk them through some site plan review. Currently, the way the ordinance is written, even with permitted use, site plan review is required. What we wanted to have a discussion with you about was that, as long as we're ensuring that they're meeting the requirements of the ordinance, just on those use issues, and if it's a use that's already permitted, could we run that as an administrative review so that folks, when they buy a building, they can convert the use and get going on the project, and we can streamline that process even more. If there's a red flag, we can always bring it back to the planning commission, but things that, like both of these, I think, and especially even the Moose building, it was a restaurant. It was a bar, it was a club, but now it's a restaurant. Very similar use. It's going to have very similar traffic in terms of people coming and going. And the other one, it was, I think, an insurance agency prior to this, so that use has changed. But we sat down and did our due diligence in terms of the ordinance, and the use it's a permitted use, and they're going to be able to meet the requirements. So I guess our question for you is whether or not you'd be interested in considering a change to the ordinance that would allow administrative review of those types of things. And we can put together exactly what we've done that part of it.
I've not been that far yet.
My only question for you, Andy, was can you see any potential problems with them? Or examples you have good stories?
Not that I can think of. I mean, there's always, the only issue that I can think of that's come up recently that's been a problem was really somebody that didn't want to go through the process and kind of wanted to do it their own way and weren't interested in doing what the community wanted them to do. That can be an issue regardless of what the ordinance says. There can always be somebody who just wants to do whatever they want and doesn't think the city has any authority to do anything. So I think
Not either of the present applicants, by the way.
right, yeah, this is totally different community, 50 miles away from the shore
That's
place.
not I clarified.
There's one.
But this, I suggested this after we met with both of these applicants here in City Hall, and it kind of made sense because I've heard applicants before, again, not the two in the room, say, why do I have to do this? I'm not building anything. I'm making some changes inside, and it's a permitted use. It was a permitted use before. Now it's going to be something else that's also permitted. Why do I have to go through this process? Wait for 4 weeks or 6 weeks to get in front of the planning commission, get a site plan turned in, and so on and so forth. And I didn't really have a great answer for. There are certainly things in zoning that we need to kind of pay attention to, whether it's parking or landscaping or lighting, signage and things like that. So something like this wouldn't completely excuse anybody from the process, and it would still ensure that the site would be looked at. But like other minor changes to approved site plans that happen and can get approved administratively already, this would kind of follow that same process. So it would almost kind of be like the same thing where there's just a small amendment to something that's already approved. It would just be permitted by the zoning enforcement officer of the city. So this would be a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. So I would draft language for the next meeting. They would allow this fairly narrowly. It's not something that we need to do everywhere. I'm thinking in instances only where it's an existing building, when there's no additions or exterior modification proposed, only when we're going to a use that's permitted by right in that zoning district. Those are kind of the only instances where something would be allowed for things that are special land uses, things that are where there would be building in addition onto a building, or maybe building a second building, or tearing down part of a building and doing something else. All that stuff would still have to come before the planning commission. And in the language, I would probably write it such that it would allow the administrative review process to, at their option, refer it to the planning commission anyways. So if there is something that comes up that I'm not thinking of that would, like Mark said, some kind of red flag or something that might, throw a wrench in the process, or something that's we're not comfortable with, or whatever, then that could still be reviewed or referred to the planning commission for a regular full site plan review like we do normally.
Today, who makes up that administrative decision?
It's the three of us. Ultimately, it's me and the zoning official, but we really work as a team and rely on Andy's expertise.
So, thoughts? Moving forward again?
I suppose we could, it just gets more people looking at it this way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It takes a little longer too, yeah.
Yeah, it takes longer. It does get more people looking at it, which is good. It gets it more out in front of the public, which can be good, obviously.
Go either way.
Yeah, I mean, but generally from a planner, but we'll tell you that the more people see things, that's usually a good thing. That being said, if with something that's permitted by right or a special land use for that matter, if it meets the standards of the ordinance, you have to allow it. You can't say no. So in this case, again, this is one of those instances where whether or not it gets to you guys or not, if it meets the standards of the ordinance, you have to approve it anyways. So why don't we just approve it and not have to let it get here and take that extra 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it might be.
We don't need to vote on that, right? We're just saying, go ahead, Andy.
We were looking for consensus at this point, and if there was a consensus, we put together actual language, and then you can work it out and pick that apart. You know, your last comment brought up an interesting question, though, and we want to make sure to address that. If we did not allow it at a staff level, we would want to make sure that it can come from the commission.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that that's clear, because we don't want to be in a position of not approving something at a staff level, and that's the end of the line.
Right.
Right, so if anything doesn't get through at the staff level, then it has to come here for review.
Yeah. And maybe that's where that option is, but I would just want to be clear that, you know, we don't have the ability to just shut something down.
It'll go through another.
That would not be our intent.
Right, and something like this, I mean, if somebody proposed something, I don't know what it would be, but for some reason, the decision at the staff level was to say no, one, it would probably get referred to the planning commission anyways, but even if it didn't, the applicant could appeal that administrative decision to the zoning board of appeals, which is permitted anyways. That wouldn't sound like the best avenue. There is an avenue for that process to continue. But I would think that in a situation like that, it would get referred to you guys anyways, and we could get some more information from the applicant and figure out what's going on before we get too far. But the idea is that if it's a building that's already existing and it's not going to be changed, then it has those non-conforming privileges already. We can't make them change it. You know, if somebody moves into an existing building that doesn't meet setbacks, we can't make them tear down the building and move it 30 feet, you know, to the west or something. So that's kind of the idea there. So I would think that in almost all cases we would know right off the bat if it was even allowed, you know, at all, no matter what, just because of what the use was. If the use is clearly something that's permitted, then we can move forward. If it was questionable, maybe it could come to the planning commission if we were kind of on the fence about whether or not that would be a approvable use in the first place. But yeah, there's certainly, we'll make it clear that if there's anything, you know, when in doubt, refer to the planning commission if there's a gray area, if there's problems, red flags, so on and so forth.
Okay. Consensus? All right. Staff report?
Nothing more than what's in your packets.
Questions? Moving on to the commissioner remarks.
I'm glad to see everybody survived the last 2 months. It's been pretty nasty. And I won't make a comment about the huge potholes on my street.
Everybody's,
Find one without it.
In the whole state. All right. We'll move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
at 7:25?
At
I'll second.
7:24 I have to Verizon.
Good for you.
And all those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? And abstained? We're good to go. Thank you.